In this video, we're going to talk about quadratic functions. And we're going to start with some definitions and some rules first to make our life a little easier. By definition, a quadratic function is going to look something like this. It's going to have a square in it. So in this case, f of x equals x squared, or we learned from another video that f of x is the same as y, so y equals x squared. These are all going to be drawn on a graph looking like this. They may be really, 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 really skinny, or they could be really, really wide. But they all have that function. Now, I draw it like that because it's a positive value here. Now, if I actually had something like y equals minus x squared, then the graph would actually turn downward, like that. And so, having a positive or a negative is going to be very helpful on either if it cups upward or it cups downward as it's drawn. Now, it doesn't always have to go through there. The graph could have looked like, some of these graphs you're going to see are going to look like this, where they're way off to the side. Notice from a picture like this, a little bit of definitions, the top part of a graph, or if it's one like this, the lowest part of the graph, that bottom part here, or this top part here is called the vertex. Okay? And then you'll also notice in this picture that it crosses the x twice. So this one has two x-intercepts. And then if you took it out far enough, you actually may have a y-intercept as well. So we have to define those things, and we're going to have to calculate the vertex and the x-axes, and or excuse me, the x-intercepts or the y-intercepts as we go along. Now, quadratic equations aren't just written like that. Sometimes they're also written like this. Now notice there's an A, a B, and a C. That's going to be important. Those are going to be numbers. But notice more than that, that they work down. You have x to the second power, x to the first power, x to the zero power, which we'll never write x to the zero power. But notice how they are in descending order. Again, this graph would be one of those types of graphs that look like that. If there was a negative sign on the front of it, then it would be a graph that works like that. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to play around with these a little bit and see if we can figure out how to calculate a few values. Let's try one like this. And we want to find the vertex, the x-intercept, and the y-intercept. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a shortcut for the vertex. Whenever you're doing the vertex for an equation like this, it is actually this value. Okay, so the vertex, remember, it's going to be 2 points. It's either going to be, in this case, it's minus. That point right there, it's going to have an x value and a y value. The x value is always going to be minus b over 2a. Remember, this is a, this is b, and this is c. And then the second number is going to be the function of what you just calculated. Now, that's not going to make a lot of sense until I do this first one, so let's do this one together. If I erase that too quickly, back it up, make sure you get that down. So I'll just write it again. Okay, so to find the vertex, I'm going to have, it's minus b, so it's minus 4 over 2 times a, which is a negative minus 1. So it's going to be minus 4 over 2 times minus 1. Now the negative on the top and negative on the bottom go away. 4 divided by 2 is a 2. So the x value is a 2. The y value was this weird thing that looked like this, the function of minus b over 2a. Simply what that means is when you get this answer, put that answer in for x and see what you get. So what we're going to do is, all of this equals y. Let's go ahead and plug that in. What's 2? Take these letters out. I'm going to plug this in for x, because in a point, that's the x. So 2 squared is 4 times minus 1. That's minus 4. 2 times 4 is an 8 minus 3. I wonder what y is equal to. So one more time. I plug the 2 in for x value. 2 squared, that's minus 4. So minus 4 plus that, that's plus 4. Minus 3 is y's value of 1. There's my vertex. So I use minus b over 2a to get this value, and then I plug that value in for x and get my answer. There's my vertex. If I want to get my x-intercept, I'm going to set the y equal to 0. So we're going to do that next. So we're going to take this equation of minus 1x squared plus 4x minus 3, and we're going to set it equal to 0. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to try to factor it. Now I can't factor with a minus x, so let's take the minus out. That's x squared, takes a minus out of everything. And so that becomes x. That becomes x. Plus sign means these are both the same, so they're both minuses. A 3 and a 1 gives me 4. That gives me my value. So x minus 1 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. So move the 1 over. X equals 1. X equals, move the 3 over 3. So I have 1, 0, and 3, 0. You may be thinking, where did I get the 0? Remember, I set the y equal to 0, so it's a 0 on both points. My answers I got were 1 and 3. So that means that when I have this curve, it crosses the x-axis of my graph. It's going to cross twice like that. Okay? And I just found the points. All right? If you got confused on that, back it up, watch it again. There's my x-intercepts. To get my y-intercept, I'm going to make my x equal 0. So I'm going to take this same equation. If I make x equal 0, that all becomes 0. Make that 0. So if x is 0, all that's left is minus 3. And there are all my values. So it's going to be a graph that's going to curve like this. And its maximum, the top of it, is going to be a vertex at 1. Okay, so I didn't graph that right. But how do I know that? Because if my vertex is 2, 1, and that's the highest point. So over 2, up 1, 1, 2, up 1. It's going to look something like that. It's going to graph down like that. Again, you can use your graphing calculator. If you have to calculate these values, you've got to be very quick about it. Let's try another example. And sometimes the sections that you're going to do these in is in the non-calculator section. So you have to know how to calculate it yourself or you're in trouble. So here's another one really quick. Works just like the last one. If you want to pause and try this, I'll do it with you. So go ahead and pause, come right back, we'll try this one together. Okay, so I'm going to try to get the vertex, the x-intercept, and the y-intercept. And again, this is going to be on the section where you have no calculator, so you got to be quick about it. Minus b over 2a, so minus b is minus 4 over 2 times minus 1. Well, that does what it did last time. Plus and the 2 minuses make a plus. 4 over 2 is a 2. So if I plug in the function of that, so 2 squared is 4, so that's minus 4, plus 8 minus 4, that gives me a 0. So my vertex is 2, 0. 2, 0. If I want to get my x-intercept, I'm going to set my y equals 0. And so if this equals y, I'm going to set that thing to 0. So take out the minus. X squared minus 4x plus 4. To factor that, they're both the same, so they're both minuses. 2 and 2 multiplied by 4, and they add up to 4, so that's work. That's fine. X minus 2 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 2, x equals 2. It's the same point. So 2, 0 is my y-intercept. So I have 2, 0, and you'll notice it matches the vertex. So what that means is it's going to pass at the origin right here. Okay? So the vertex, I know it's pointing down because it's minus. It's going to hit the vertex. So the vertex and the x-intercept happen to be the same thing. Don't get those two things confused. In this question, they happen to be the same thing, but not always true. In the y-intercept, I'm going to have my x is equal 0. So if I make my x equals 0, that means 0. That's a 0. So if my x is 0, minus 4 is my y-intercept. That's where it actually crosses the y. All right? So that gives you an example of how to do that. Now, what happens if you get this crazy looking one that solved like this? Y equals x minus 7 squared minus 3. Now, I'm going to give you a helpful hint on this one. There's a shortcut on this one. By definition, the vertex on this one, if it looks like this, is always going to be, they call this the H, and they call that the K. The vertex is always H, K. So in this case, the vertex is going to be H. I don't move the minus, it's just what that number is. 7, and k is minus 3. Now, how did I get that? Well, the generic formula for this thing is x minus h squared plus k. So since the minus is already there, I'm just taking the number. And since that's a plus and that says negative, that must be the minus 3. So my vertex is 7 minus 3. That makes it real easy. Okay. To get my x-intercept on one like this, I'm going to have to do what I did a while ago, which is set y equals 0. Now, how do I do that? Well, I have to multiply through. I've got to get rid of the parentheses. So basically, it's going to be x minus 7 times x minus 7 minus 3. So it's x squared minus 7x, I'm just using the distributive property, minus 7x again, plus 49 minus 3. So I get x squared minus 14x plus 46. Now, I tried to factor it a while ago. Before I did this video, it doesn't factor. So what happens if you quickly try to factor something like that and it doesn't factor? Well, in this case, you have to use the quadratic equation. And you'll notice the quadratic equation has that same word. And in the next video set, we're going to really do a lot with it. You've seen the quadratic equation that looks like this. And in this equation, we actually have to use it. So pause the video, get your quadratic equation, and then we're going to solve that real quick. Okay? So this is A, this is B, this is C. So let's solve that. So x equals all that stuff. So if I'm going to do work that thing out, I'm going to take minus b, which is a negative, or minus 14, so it becomes positive 14, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 14. So I'll do the math for you right here. 14 times 14 equals, oops, one more time, 196. So it's 196 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 46. So 44 times 46, 184. So this is basically, this is 184 over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay? So 196 minus 184 equals 12. Let me show that again just in case they come through 12. So it's plus 14 plus or minus, no, I don't have to have a plus, square root of 12 over 2. Can I simplify that? Well, can't take square root of 12, but I know that's 4 times 3, and I can take the square root of both of those. Square root of 4 is 2, and that comes out here. Okay, so that becomes 14 plus or minus 2 square roots of 3 over 2. All that's left under there is square root of 3. I see a 2 comes out of all of them. Whew, finally got it. 7 plus or minus square root of 3. Okay, I'll push that up so you can see all my math. So I had to take a 2 out of all of that. So it was 14, 2, and 2. So I took the 2 out. There it is. There's my x value. I know that's a lot of math. You just got to get quicker at it. And so that's what my x is equal to. So my x-intercept is going to be 7 plus or minus the square root of 3 when the y is 0. How do I know y is 0? Because the x-intercept, y is equal to 0. Okay? And so there's my x value. If I want to get my y-intercept, I'm going to set x equal to 0. So if I go here and set x equal to 0, 0 minus 7 is minus 7 squared, which is 49 minus 3. So that's 0, 46. How do I get that order? If x equals 0, there's my 0. Y equals 0, there's my 0. So there's all my points. So we tried some that look like this, and then we tried the ones that look like plus some number. And that's how you do them. So in the next video, you're going to get to try some of these out. Take some practice. Good luck.